everyone, back at the Hub with Amy and Zai. We're going to talk a little bit more today about grounding in supine, or lying on your back. When you're teaching a yoga class and you really want to keep everybody safe and you have people with compromised balance, one of the ways to make sure that everybody is pretty safe is to have them on the floor, if you can, of course, safely get them there. So we do a lot of work here, even with our ambulatory students or our students who are walking. We do a lot of work at Mind Body Solutions on the floor, and I even do a lot of balancing poses on the floor. We won't go into those today, but people are much more comfortable trying some of those poses because there's nowhere to fall. And so I do like to do a lot of poses on the floor, and today we're going to talk over some of the ways that we help people feel the sensation of grounding when they're on the floor. So I'm here with Zai. Thanks for joining me again.
You're welcome, of course.
And I think the first thing we'll do is have you go ahead and get down to the floor.
Just want to fall?
I hope not. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. All right, so I'm going to move my chair out of the way. Zai's going to work his way to the floor. So as you watch Zai make this transfer from the chair to the floor, I want you to really honor what it takes for your students to make that transfer. I've watched Zai for years work on different transfers, from going from sitting to standing and various things. And it was a big deal, wasn't it, Zai?
Huge.
Huge, when you went from a sitting position to the floor, or from a standing position all the way down to the floor. Now it's beautiful to watch the precision and the care that Zai takes when he makes this transfer. And as somebody who's known Zai a long time, it's really fun to have watched that progress. So, once people get down to the floor in your class, I like to just let them land here. Because for most of the people who come to your class, they may have been using a wheelchair all day, they may have been using an assistive device all day, and all of that comes with a sense of not always feeling grounded. And so when people get down to the floor, I like to give everybody a few minutes literally to land. And I'll just say that in my class, especially as we're getting other people down, I'll just say land there. And let the body begin to unwind. Let the body begin to feel the sensation of support from the floor below you. And that in itself is a source of grounding. Zai, do you want anything under your head? A little bit,
Please.
Yeah, okay. So once our students lie down, I like to keep their head level. Zai's head tilts back just a tiny bit, and so I'm going to put one layer of blanket underneath his head. How's that feel?
Perfect.
Okay. And what I like about that is we can give him just a little bit of support under the head, and it makes his forehead and his chin about level. And he's more comfortable that way. He doesn't feel like he's falling backwards. Often your students, when you have them get down to the floor, their heads will really tip backwards, and so you'll need often quite a bit more than Zai needs. So today we're going to talk a little bit about different ways that we use grounding to prepare our students for other poses, for expansion and rhythm and balance and all sorts of things when they're on the floor here. So I'm going to ask Bethany to come on into the shot with us. This is Bethany from Mind Body Solutions. I think most of you know our wonderful Bethany, who we adore. All right, so we're going to start out. So maybe your students have been on the floor for a few minutes and you're getting ready to help them begin to move through another pose. As I help students land and as I help them feel that sensation of support from the floor, often we give reference to their legs. And remembering, Zai has great sensation in his legs, but many of our students don't. And their legs may be out to the side, they may be bent, they also may be over a bolster. So you will have to adapt to whatever position that your students are in. But Bethany's going to start out by just simply taking her forearm, the bone of her forearm, and putting it right across the front of Zai's shins. And so we're just giving him a little bit of reference. We're helping Zai kind of feel where his body is in space. Again, many of the students that come into your class may have been using a wheelchair for, for mobility during the day, and it really helps them to unwind and to open up and to begin to realize where their body is in space. And then Bethany, I'm going to have you go ahead and sit up. So that's one way, and then we also do that same sort of reference, but we'll do it across the thighs. So Bethany's going to go ahead and do that right across Zai's thighs. Oh, I kind of like that. So Zai, as you feel,
Feels so good.
So it feels so good. Dig deeper. What does it make you feel?
Reminding me that I actually have femurs.
Okay, so
That's
reminding.
femur bone, right?
That's the femur bone, yeah.
Yeah. And well, Bethany putting that weight on there helps them come into line.
Come into alignment. Okay, and
I
remember.
can feel that in my hips.
You can feel it in your hips. Okay, where else do you feel it in your body? Do you feel it going down through your legs or up through your chest, or is it pretty much local to where?
My left little toe.
Your left little toe. You're so astute. Okay,
No.
Bethany, thanks. Go ahead. So one of the things, as we've talked about before with references, is if you leave a reference on there for too long, then it tends to you don't notice it. You begin to acclimate. So that's a couple of ways that we just slowly begin showing people where their body is in space. And then the last one, sometimes we just take the soft part of our hand and we put it right across somebody's diaphragm. So she's going to go ahead and do that. And notice when she does that, Zai takes a nice deep breath. I often jokingly, as I'm sure many of you do, remind your students to breathe when they're in class. And of course, we all tend to hold our breath. And even when people get down on the floor, they're so used to having that pattern of, holding their breath, holding their muscles tight, that often that little gentle reference on the diaphragm allows them to go even a little more deeply into feeling the sensation of grounding on the floor. And so sometimes just a very gentle hand. Bethany's not pushing down at all. It's simply just the reference of her hand on Zai's diaphragm that is allowing him to breathe into this position. Zai, any comments? Are you still awake?
So comfortable.
So you're really comfortable. Of these three, is there one that helps you feel most safe, most comfortable, most grounded, or are they all about the same?
They're about the same, but I really liked when you had your arms on my thighs, the knees.
The thighs around the knees. So in
Just
it.
Subtly caused the legs to move toward each other,
Okay. And that's another part of finding the midline, and that's why I love to do these segments with Zai, because he's learned to listen really well to what's going on in his body. As you begin teaching new students, they won't have that experience, which is why it's really nice to have experienced students in the class as they begin to share. Zai's been with us for so long that he's really developed that skill of listening a little bit deeper. Bethany's also going to come around over to this side, and she's just gently going to place her hands right across the top part of Zai's shoulders. Again, she's not holding him down. She's only helping his body realize where it's in space. And again, often that will elicit a nice deep breath and a sigh from our students. Again, most of them like that. Your students will not like all of these different applications of touch, and that's perfectly fine. You decide with your students what's right for you. So that's one. And then sometimes when we're trying to help people kind of realize where they are in space, we also might give just a little touch to the top of the head. And maybe somebody else might be giving a touch to the feet, and we might say to grow into that space as we begin to work on expansion. And Zai begins to melt.
You don't know how much. Take up the space. I always say, take up the space.
Take up the space.
That's huge.
Teaching our students to live in larger spaces is part of the reason that we teach yoga. We want them to take up the space. We want them to begin to move in all of the available spaces that they can. And helping them find where their body is in space with simple grounding techniques is a really good way to start that. All right, thanks, Bethany. Many of our students, as I said, especially those who have less control of their legs, often their legs will be out to the side, or their legs might be on a bolster because they're not able to completely straighten them out. And then we might take a strap and put it around the thighs. We might roll up a blanket or a block and put it right between the legs and then belt the thighs to help them again find that sensation of midline. We won't go through that today, but that's another way of helping them find grounding. Bethany, I'm going to have you come all the way down to Zai's feet. And this is another one we do a lot in our adaptive classes. We'll have our assistants, if you're lucky enough to have assistants, we'll have our assistants go feet to feet. So Bethany's simply going to put her feet into Zai's feet. Notice immediately he knows to activate. Now all of your students won't know. So Zai, I'm going to have you just completely relax your legs. All right, so Bethany might come in, especially again with somebody who doesn't have the control of their legs, she might come in and help teach them where that midline is. Always keeping in mind that alignment is a form of mind-body integration, and it's also a source of grounding for our students to begin to feel that sensation of midline, and for some of them that's a very unfamiliar space. And so to help them begin to feel that and recognize that space is a really important part of our yoga teaching. So Bethany's pressing into Zai's feet, a little more pressure through her heel than with the ball of her foot, so she can really help him feel that sensation of grounding all the way up through his body. Zai, what do you feel when Bethany puts her feet into your feet?
It just feels really grounded. It makes me feel being touched on that end of my body. Makes it feel, and with the back along the floor, makes me feel like it's more solid.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. Feeling that sensation of solidness or base. Wonderful. And then, as always, Bethany will slowly draw her feet away.
Please don't go.
So anytime that you're giving reference to one of your students, remember to come in slowly and also then to back out slowly. We don't want to jar our students. And again, your students may like some of the forms of reference and they may not, and that's up to your discretion which ones you might want to use at any given time. I think that's it for grounding. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, Zai. Come back to the hub for more videos on grounding and expansion, and I think we'll finish off with this one. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. We'd love to hear from you. Please consider giving us your comments as to what you'd like to see in the future.